A client drank milk with every meal for prostate health, 3 glasses daily, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Calcium for bones and vitamin D, he said. His doctor recommended it years ago. After 4 years of this routine, his PSA, 9.4, up from 7.6, 1.8 increase, despite 4 years of what he thought was bone-protective dairy consumption. Then a new urologist reviewed his diet. How much dairy do you consume daily? 3 glasses of milk. For calcium and vitamin D, the urologist paused. That might be contributing to your PSA elevation. My client was shocked. But milk is healthy. It's what I was told to drink. The urologist explained recent research on dairy and prostate health. Multiple large studies, including the health professionals' follow-up study with 21,000 men, found a correlation between high dairy intake and elevated PSA. Specifically, men consuming 3 or more servings of dairy daily had significantly higher PSA levels than men consuming 1 or fewer servings. The mechanism involves several factors. First, IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. Milk naturally contains IGF-1. It's a growth hormone that helps calves grow. In humans, elevated IGF-1 levels correlate with higher prostate cancer risk and elevated PSA. Studies show that high dairy consumption raises blood IGF-1 levels by 15 to 20%. Second, bovine hormones. Conventional dairy contains hormones given to cows for milk production. These hormones, even in small amounts, may affect human hormone balance. For men with prostate issues, hormone disruption can elevate PSA. Third, excess calcium. 3 glasses of milk provide approximately 900 milligrams of calcium, plus calcium from other foods, yogurt, cheese, fortified foods. Total daily calcium can easily exceed 1,500 milligrams. Research shows that very high calcium intake, above 1,500 milligrams daily, correlates with higher prostate cancer risk. The mechanism may involve calcium-suppressing vitamin D activation. Vitamin D is protective for the prostate. Excess calcium blocks this protection. My client's 4 years of 3 glasses daily had raised his IGF-1, exposed him to dairy hormones, and created calcium excess. All 3 factors elevating PSA. The urologist suggested limiting dairy to 1 serving daily maximum. Switch to unsweetened almond or oat milk for other beverages. Get calcium from leafy greens, sardines, tahini instead. My client made the change immediately. 3 months later, PSA 9.0, down 0.4 from 9.4. 6 months, PSA 8.4, down 1 full point. 9 months, PSA 7.9, down 1.5 total. 12 months, PSA 7.4, down 2 full points from his peak, back below where he started 4 years earlier. 4 years drinking milk for bone health, he told me, but it was raising my PSA the entire time. The calcium and hormones were working against my prostate. Through working with clients, I've identified 3 everyday foods that research links to elevated PSA. Foods people eat regularly thinking they're healthy, or at least neutral, but foods that may be creating inflammation or hormonal effects that elevate PSA. Today, I'm revealing all 3 foods, the research on each, why they affect the prostate specifically, and the simple alternatives that provide the same benefits without the PSA elevation. If you're eating these 3 foods regularly and your PSA isn't improving, type foods in the comments and I'll send you the complete food swap guide with alternatives and preparation methods. This is educational information based on research and clinical observation, not medical advice. Client details have been changed to protect privacy while maintaining accuracy of dietary patterns. Individual responses to foods vary significantly. Some men tolerate these foods without issues. Work with your healthcare provider on dietary decisions. Let me show you the 3 everyday foods that may be harming your prostate. Food number 1, dairy milk, IGF-1, hormones, excess calcium. This is what my client was consuming, and the research on dairy and prostate health is extensive. The health professionals' follow-up study tracked 21,000 men for 11 years. Men consuming more than 2 servings of dairy daily had a 34% higher risk of advanced prostate cancer compared to men consuming less than half a serving daily. PSA elevation correlated directly with dairy intake. The three mechanisms work together. First mechanism, IGF-1. Milk contains naturally occurring IGF-1 from cows. When humans consume dairy regularly, blood IGF-1 levels rise. A meta-analysis of studies found that high dairy consumption increases IGF-1 by approximately 15%. IGF-1 is a growth factor. It promotes cell growth and division. In prostate tissue, elevated IGF-1 can stimulate both normal and abnormal cell growth. Research shows that men with high IGF-1 levels have 4 times the risk of advanced prostate cancer compared to men with low levels. While correlation isn't causation, the consistent pattern across multiple studies is concerning. Second mechanism, bovine hormones. Conventional dairy comes from cows given hormones to increase milk production. These hormones, including estrogens and progesterone, are present in milk. Even in small amounts, they may affect human hormone balance. For men, any hormone disruption can affect the prostate. The prostate is extremely sensitive to hormonal signals. Third mechanism, excess calcium suppressing vitamin D. Calcium and vitamin D work together for bone health, but too much calcium can suppress the activation of vitamin D in the body. Vitamin D is protective for the prostate. Studies show that men with adequate vitamin D levels have lower PSA and reduced prostate cancer risk. When excess calcium from dairy blocks vitamin D activation, this protection is lost. My client was experiencing all 3 effects: elevated IGF-1 from daily milk, hormone exposure from conventional dairy, calcium excess blocking vitamin D protection. The solution? Limit dairy to 1 serving daily maximum if tolerated, or eliminate dairy completely and use alternatives. Unsweetened almond milk, oat milk, or coconut milk for beverages. Get calcium from non-dairy sources: leafy greens, sardines with bones, tahini, fortified plant milks. These provide calcium without the IGF-1, hormones, or excess that suppresses vitamin D. A client who eliminated dairy completely saw his PSA drop from 9.1 to 7.6 in 10 months. 1.5 decrease. Food number 2, white bread and refined carbohydrates. White bread, white rice, regular pasta, crackers, bagels. These seem like neutral foods, not unhealthy, just basic carbohydrates. But research shows refined carbohydrates create inflammatory blood sugar spikes. White bread has a glycemic index of 75, higher than table sugar at 65. This means white bread raises blood sugar faster than pure sugar. When you eat white bread, blood glucose spikes rapidly. Within 30 to 60 minutes, blood sugar can rise 40 to 60 points. The pancreas responds by releasing large amounts of insulin. This insulin surge creates an inflammatory cascade. Research shows that repeated blood sugar spikes increase systemic inflammation. A 2018 study measured inflammatory markers after different carbohydrate meals. Refined carbohydrate meal, elevated C-reactive protein, and interleukin-6 within 2 hours. Whole grain meal, no inflammatory marker increase. The difference is fiber. White bread is stripped of fiber during processing. Without fiber, the carbohydrates hit your bloodstream rapidly. Whole grains contain fiber that slows digestion and prevents spikes. For men with prostate issues, chronic inflammation from blood sugar spikes keeps PSA elevated. Additionally, insulin resistance, caused by repeated blood sugar spikes, directly affects the prostate. Studies show that men with insulin resistance have PSA levels 20 to 40% higher than men with normal insulin sensitivity. The prostate responds to insulin signaling. High insulin creates a pro-inflammatory environment in prostate tissue. A client ate white bread toast every morning and sandwiches for lunch, 4 slices daily for 3 years. His PSA rose from 7.9 to 8.8, 9/10 increase. His fasting glucose reached 112, pre-diabetic range. When he eliminated white bread and switched to eggs for breakfast and salads for lunch, his PSA dropped to 7.4 in 9 months. 1.4 decrease. His glucose normalized to 92. The solution? Eliminate refined carbohydrates. No white bread, white rice, regular pasta. Choose whole grains if eating grains. True whole grain bread with visible seeds. Brown rice, whole grain pasta. Better yet, reduce grain consumption overall. Focus on protein, vegetables, and healthy fats. These stabilize blood sugar and prevent inflammatory spikes. Food number 3, canned tomatoes, BPA exposure. This one surprises people. Tomatoes are healthy for the prostate. They contain lycopene, a carotenoid with protective properties. Research supports eating tomatoes for prostate health, but canned tomatoes present a problem. The issue isn't the tomatoes, it's the can. Most food cans are lined with epoxy resin containing BPA, bisphenol A. BPA prevents the metal from corroding, but tomatoes are highly acidic. The acid leaches BPA from the can lining into the tomato product. Studies show that canned tomatoes have some of the highest BPA levels of any canned food. One serving of canned tomato sauce can contain 40 to 60 micrograms of BPA. Someone eating canned tomatoes daily, sauce, diced tomatoes, soup, can consume 100 to 200 micrograms of BPA daily. BPA is an endocrine disruptor. It mimics estrogen in the body. For men, this creates hormonal imbalance. Research links BPA exposure to higher PSA levels. A study measured BPA levels in urine and correlated them with PSA. Men with high BPA exposure had PSA levels 25% higher than men with low exposure. The mechanism involves BPA binding to estrogen receptors in prostate tissue. This disrupts normal hormone signaling and can promote inflammation. The irony: eating tomatoes for lycopene benefits while simultaneously getting BPA exposure. The BPA harm may overwhelm the lycopene benefit. A client ate canned tomato products 2 to 3 times daily for 2 years. Canned sauce on eggs at breakfast, canned diced tomatoes in salads, canned tomato soup for dinner. His PSA rose from 8.2 to 8.9, 7/10 increase, despite eating lycopene-rich tomatoes daily. When he switched to fresh tomatoes and glass-jarred tomato products, his PSA dropped to 8.0 in 6 months, 9/10 decrease, back to his baseline before canned tomatoes. The solution: avoid canned tomatoes and tomato products. Use fresh tomatoes whenever possible. For cooking, buy tomato products in glass jars. Glass has no BPA lining. Brands like Bio Nature, Jovial, and others package tomatoes in glass. You get the lycopene benefit without BPA exposure. Now you know the 3 everyday foods. Here's how to eliminate them. Avoid. Food. 1. Dairy milk. All types, organic or conventional. Food. 2. White bread and refined carbohydrates. White bread, white rice, pasta, crackers, bagels. Food. 3. Canned tomatoes. All canned tomato products, including sauce, paste, diced, soup. Choose instead of dairy milk, unsweetened almond milk, oat milk, or coconut milk. Limit dairy to 1 serving daily if tolerated. Preferably organic, fermented like yogurt or kefir. Instead of white bread, true whole grain bread with visible seeds and low glycemic index. Or better, eggs, salads, protein-focused meals without bread. Instead of canned tomatoes, fresh tomatoes, or glass-jarred tomato products. 30-day elimination test. Remove all 3 foods completely for 30 days. Track your PSA before and after. This identifies if these foods are contributing to your elevation. Many men see significant improvement within 60 to 90 days. Reintroduction, if desired. After 90 days, reintroduce 1 food at a time. Test for 2 weeks. Check PSA. If PSA stays stable, that food may be tolerable in small amounts. If PSA rises, that food is problematic for you. This identifies your individual sensitivities. These 3 foods, dairy milk, refined carbohydrates, canned tomatoes, are among the most commonly consumed in Western diets. Research suggests they may contribute to PSA elevation through different mechanisms: hormones and IGF-1 from dairy, blood sugar inflammation from refined carbs, and BPA exposure from canned foods. However, individual responses vary significantly. Some men tolerate these foods without PSA effects. The elimination test helps identify your personal sensitivities. These dietary changes work best as part of a comprehensive approach, including exercise, stress management, adequate sleep, and overall balanced nutrition. Work with your healthcare provider on all health decisions. My client drank 3 glasses of milk daily for 4 years. Doctor recommended for bone health. His PSA went from 7.6 to 9.4, 1.8 increase. The IGF-1, hormones, and excess calcium were elevating his PSA. When he eliminated dairy and limited it to 1 serving daily, his PSA dropped 2 full points in 12 months, back below his starting level. The 3 everyday foods that may be harming your prostate: dairy milk, IGF-1, hormones, excess calcium, white bread and refined carbs, blood sugar spikes and inflammation, canned tomatoes, BPA exposure from acidic tomatoes leaching from can lining. Eliminate all 3 for 30 days. Track your PSA. Many men see significant improvements. Comment foods below and I'll send you the complete guide. Detailed alternatives for each food, shopping lists, BPA-free brands, meal planning without these 3 foods, and the research studies supporting each recommendation. Subscribe because next video I'm revealing the 3 cooking methods that make even healthy foods inflammatory.